supply chains because we're not sensitive enough to what markets need and what customers want. So the case for diversity is more than gender. I think it's functional. I think it's intra-company and bringing people from outside of the corporation to help us make our decisions. And we've been playing with the concept of co-creation, which is something that if you ask a supply chain engineer at Georgia Tech, they have no clue even how to spell that thing. But today, if we work in innovation and process innovation, the key concept is called co-creation. We cannot assume we can create innovative processes by ourselves. So moving beyond optimization also requires something where I think diversity, and in this case I'll take a little bit of a gender position, sometimes women are better positioned to managing beyond the business function. And I think supply chain has become the management of business relationships. We spend more time managing relationships with suppliers, with carriers, with customers, than actually managing business functions. Because, and this is my hypothesis, the big effort of making decisions about processes, that big effort has been taken away by software. You know, software is driving a lot of the decisions that when I was in school, we were running simplex models trying to optimize the routing, and now we can do it with software. So I think the role of humans in supply chain organizations is really managing relationships. And the more relationships you manage effectively, and I teach a course at Georgia Tech called Supply Chain Relationship Management, Life Cycle Management of Relationships. From beginning to end, from measuring performance to developing both parties. And I think in that sense, some women in the supply chain function are extremely well positioned to manage business relationships across the firm and with other firms. So I guess my key point is thinking about transformation beyond optimization actually requires a focus on innovation and really a focus on relationship-based management more than a functional-based management as we've had.
So I love the point about beyond optimization, and I'm going to put it I'm going to add a term to that. Integration is not, it's sufficient, but it's not enough. And I put the maturity model up because a lot of the points that Maria spoke about are vested in the way we've deployed systems. And let me put that in perspective. We bought a big ERP system. We configured it with our consultants for a stage 5 set of processes. The industry average, and I've benchmarked 50 companies, is 2.4. So what do you think happens when you put a stage 5 design on a stage 2 project-oriented organization? The first thing they do is they customize the software. They customize the software, and then we get into this sub-optimization of projects and silos. We advance to stage 3, and then we get stuck. Go and look at the industry today and see how many redeployments of ERP solutions. I'm being very careful not to pick on any one vendor here. How many redeployments there are of ERP solutions because they got stuck at stage 3 because that integration was sufficient to get us to 3, but it's not enough to get us to the relationship management of the end-to-end supply chain. It's a very, very fundamental point. Right, so let's get back to Anne. And I apologize because I think I spelled your name wrong. So that's my bad.
It's okay. Anna's pronounced the same way either way. I'd like to say hello. I'm Anne Drake. I'm CEO at DSC Logistics, a third-party logistics and supply chain company headquartered in the Chicago area. And I'm excited to talk about the topic of transformation in supply chains because I see it every day and experience it every day in working with our customer partners. Our company designs, integrates, manages, and adapts supply chain solutions for a wide variety of Fortune 500 companies and a variety of industries, primarily consumer and healthcare companies. So my story about my quality that I think is so important for transformation actually begins with my personal story. I joined our company in the early 1990s, coming from outside the industry. I had been armed with an MBA from Northwestern and Kellogg School, and my father had founded our company in the 1960s, and so along came the 40-year-old daughter who wrote a reorganizational plan for the company, and I said, I need to position this company to be successful in the 21st century, Dad. And here are the things you need to do, and it starts with putting me on the org chart as Executive Vice President of Strategy and Culture. So that was the way I began, which was an unusual beginning. But I was enthusiastic, and I knew some of our customers from some social events, and I was excited because I had been on the board for 5 years and knew the business at the top, and knew a little bit about the industry in that way. But it was the perfect storm, because I didn't know about the way things worked, both inside the company and inside the industry. And having come from a completely different place, I had no idea how bad it could be, and how difficult it could be in a lot of ways. So I came in saying change, communication team, TQM, strategy leadership, and they said silos, we don't talk, we don't share, we don't team, we keep our heads down into our work. And then when it came time to learn about the customers, well, the customers were sometimes that way too. So they were occasionally outsourcing a little piece of business to a third party like ourselves. They told us exactly how to do it, where to do it, when to do it, and we weren't supposed to think, we were just supposed to do exactly what they told us to do. So, I said, oh boy, I didn't know this is what I had signed up for. And it became the perfect storm because I had inside, I had people with the kind of experience that I felt wasn't really helping in the future. And outside, I had legions of people that managed us and wanted to make sure we did it like it had always been done. So I struggled with that for a while. And I finally decided, and this is my key point in supply chain transformation, that the most important thing and the place for me to really start was not the plan, not the strategy, but the people. Because I needed a very different kind of person who was going to be successful in this very unpredictable, changing, constantly environment. So I actually came up with 4 qualities that I said, it doesn't matter who this person is in our organization, these are the 4 qualities that are going to be needed to be successful in the future. The first was they had to be very smart. And the reason they have to be very smart is they're going to have to be operating in an environment that's not predictable. So they're not going to know what they're going to have to put together in the course of a given day. So they're going to need to rely on plenty of brain power to be able to do that. The second was they needed to be creative and innovative. Again, it was clear to me that we couldn't predict the future, and so no matter what we trained for or positioned for, it probably wasn't going to be right. So we had to have the kind of people who could be creative and innovative with whatever was handed down by our customers or by the environment or by the industry. The third and fourth quality is flexibility, 2 kinds. I learned that we had to have a huge amount of interpersonal flexibility to be successful in this environment, and a huge amount of intellectual flexibility. And so these qualities, armed with these 4 qualities, and a number of years, I set about transforming our company by starting with the people. And I looked outside, I would interview everyone I met everywhere I was, trying to find someone who knew something about our industry, something, anything, but had these qualities and could come in and learn and grow and do, and help us transform our company continually, which we do today, and help us work with our customer companies who were going to be faced with the same kinds of challenges. Now, as far as women, women can operate successfully in this kind of environment. So I feel that this is an area where women can succeed, and even much more today than in the 90s, which is where the story began. And I think that as we grow and mature in supply chain, and also the idea that was mentioned about relationships, the ability to collaborate, communicate, and work together are really, really, really important. And I think that sometimes women have some natural skills in this area. But it really isn't a gender-based thing. It's really the kind of people who can be successful, male or female, in this changing, exciting environment we find ourselves in the year 2012.
Good, thank you very much, Anne. So I've put the maturity model back up again because there's a few points that Anne made that I think really resonated with me from the point of view of that model. Dan's comment was really smart, right? You can't jump to stage 5. Procter & Gamble took 15 years, and they're still not at stage 5. Just to give you I keep throwing out numbers here. I benchmarked 50 companies. In that, Dell, Procter & Gamble, Unilever, just trying to think who else, Simplot, Smuckers, some really, really Mars, really well-established global manufacturing companies. As I said, the industry average was 2.4, which says most companies' maturities are oriented towards project-based performance improvement of the supply chain. Procter & Gamble were 4.7, Unilever 4.2, Dell 3.4. Right, so you see there's some fundamental big gaps in the industry. So what you heard Anne say was smart, agile, intellectual, relationship-oriented. The jump from stage 3 to stage 5, where you flip from vertical expertise, which you have to have in place. You can't have a reliable demand-driven supply chain unless you are reliable in supplying the product. It ain't going to happen. And if you sense demand and there's stockouts on the shelf, if you don't have a reliable supply system, then you're either going to create too much or you're going to create too little. So the interesting story about the Dell versus Procter & Gamble, because there's a story in there. Annette Clayton, who today is the head of supply chain for Schneider Electric, was the head of supply chain for Dell. She said, I refuse to accept that Procter & Gamble is better than us. So I said, all right, well, Annette, let's go through why I think Dell is not as strong as Procter & Gamble. I said, how do you handle IT? Well, it's a big project. Okay? How do you handle change management? It's a big project. Can you see where I'm going? How do you handle organization design? Oh, well, we've got a group that does all that. Right, so you just told me why you restrict the organization, because you've driven functional excellence in the organization. Where's the end-to-end thinking? If you go into Procter & Gamble, everybody in the organization is metriced against stockouts. The CEO of Procter & Gamble said, our first moment of truth, we have to eliminate $1 billion of stockouts, and the most important thing for this business is when we say our product's available, it's on the shelf. What's the second moment of truth? When we fixed moment of truth number 1, we'll go to moment of truth number 2, which is we understand why every consumer chooses and how they use our product. You don't fix number 2 until you fix number 1, because if it's not there, you're probably buying more stuff. But what's the underlying mechanism? You have to be very smart to figure out functionally where these problems are. But then you have to be agile enough to flick around and say, all right, well, if I'm going to solve this problem from the outside in, I'm going to cross over some very fundamental functional boundaries. Sales and operations planning. I mean, in most organizations, it's just a big fight. It's a big fight over inaccurate data. So, what are we really trying to achieve? Because sales has got their customer view, account view of data, and operations has their planning and manufacturing and product views, and the strongest character is going to win the fight. How many of you are running S&OP in your organizations? And that's exactly how it works. It's balanced supply and demand, and the fight is about inaccurate data and processes and functions that compete against each other. So to get out of that boundary from 3 to 4, you better have smart people who think integratively, who are able to build the relationships that cross those boundaries. And that's the kind of diversity. That's the horizontal part of the T that we're missing.